Katsu, a professional gamer, is feeling exhausted but excited for the upcoming Shangri-La Frontier tournament. He checks gaming news on his mobile and worries about his opponents, the Ivy Express. Meanwhile, Saiga Rei is determined to win the favor of Sanraku, the boy she likes. She plays the game to bond with him and thanks her female guild members for their help. After parting with Katsu, Sanraku heads to Rabbit's and surprises Emil, who jumps on him excitedly, causing him to fall. Emil asks about Sanraku's recent victory against Gravekeeper Wezaemon, and Sanraku is confused. After a tough battle with Undying, Vash asks for the details. The protagonist, Arthur Pencilton, admits it was the most intense fight he's had yet, with skills dangerously close to being considered broken. Despite this, he's satisfied with the challenge. Vash ponders his own growth and then asks if Arthur knows the truth about the world, but Arthur prefers to uncover it on his own. While visiting a place full of precious memories, Arthur leaves a bouquet of rare flowers, knowing his beloved NPC Set-chan would appreciate them. He continues playing the game, driven to uncover the truth behind the world of Shangri-La Frontier. As one chapter ends, a new world awaits its pioneers, hinting at more adventures to come. To take down the infamous Gravekeeper Wezaemon, a party of 6 to 7 should hold at least 4 reviving items each. The battle strategy involves a high HP tank with evasion skills, professional vanguards to stand their ground, and a support member with buffs, debuffs, and reviving magic. The battle begins with Wezaemon's deadly Tachikaze attack, but it can be avoided if timed correctly. Players must be wary of his other attacks, such as Thundercloud tracking and Dragon Fire Pillar, which can cause suffocation. Dodging is crucial, as stamina management is important throughout the battle. After the second phase, Wezaemon becomes undead and gains armor penetration, but can be weakened if hit by high-level purification magic or healing items. His insane mode, triggered in the third phase, unleashes a barrage of deadly skills one after another, including the feared Tensei, which spells certain death if hit. Skillful parrying and deflection are essential during this phase, but changing Wezaemon's aggro will not affect his target for Tensei. Destroying his sword is an option, but it will change the loot and titles acquired. Gravekeeper Wezaemon is a force to be reckoned with, prioritizing the protection of his former lover's grave, Setsuna. During the first and second phases of battle, his hyper armor grants him damage reduction, making him nearly invincible. In the third phase, while his armor can be damaged, he has the undead attribute, making him harder to defeat. Wezaemon is constantly losing HP in the third phase, so ignoring him is not advised. His golem, Kirin, is summoned during the second phase. It can merge with Wezaemon if left unattended, becoming a centaur-like enemy that is almost impossible to defeat. Destroying the Gravekeeper's sword limits his attack potential, making it easier to defeat him. Gravekeeper Wezaemon's backstory is tragic. His fixation on Setsuna's grave caused his consciousness to awaken, and his mind quickly began to age and wither away. His efforts to protect the grave forever resulted in the creation of an inverted space, but at what cost? Even without his armor, Wezaemon was incredibly powerful. The battle against Gravekeeper Wezaemon requires proper support and a full commitment to attacking. With all of the attacking players alive, the battle can finally come to an end. In this light novel series, we meet 4 gamers with unique skills and preferences. The protagonist is Hizutome Rakuru, also known as Sanraku. He's a master at immersing himself in games and prefers to play agile characters with lightning-fast attacks. Despite his lack of common sense outside of games, he's a hardcore player with incredible reaction speeds. Saiga Rei, a girl he admires, is skilled in various playstyles thanks to her kendo and martial arts training. Uomike is a professional gamer known for his all-nighters and love of victory. Finally, Amane Tawa is a top model who loves the chaos and thrill of explosions in games. These 4 gamers each have their own unique strengths and weaknesses as they navigate the world of full dive games. Amanikwon, also known as Olslot, is a 15-year-old male with exceptional intelligence and the ability to crush his enemies in action games. He dislikes games with trial and error and prefers to charge into battle. He is traumatized from his experiences in FPS games and avoids them at all costs. He started a brutal PvP guild, Ashura Kai, and is known for utilizing a rare weapon called Slaughterbringer to dominate his opponents. Animal lover, Animalia, is the founder of the monster-taming PvP guild called Sci-Fi Zoo. Her magic skills allow her to debuff and restrict others, while her strength lies in taming animals. Even though she is severely allergic to animals in real life, the world of games enables her to interact with them without any issues. She is on a mission to find Sanraku, as she believes there is a bunny heaven out there. Mina Iwaki is a 26-year-old female who specializes in capturing maidens' hearts in her Tome games. She despises real love, cherishing her hobby greatly, and sometimes even closing down her game shop, Rock and Roll, to indulge in her passion for Otome games. Dragonfly, a bright and optimistic player, doesn't give up and enjoys the moment when she clears a game. She experiments with new strategies and isn't afraid to try new things. Her style is characterized by attacking, thinking of failures and learning from them. The former third seat of Ashura Kai's inner rankings goes by an unknown name, but his player name is a mystery as well. He is obsessed with little girls and goes after the cute girls in the games he plays. He keeps his equipment load balanced, which allows him to quickly switch between attack and fleeing mode. Despite going broke to purchase his limited edition bikini armor, he is currently creating his own faction. In a world where giants and humans coexist, 3 organizations keep the balance in check. The Nephilim Company controls the most giants, the Holy Religion deploys holy knights to hunt down heretics, and the giant killers dispose of giants. Russ Sama, the Queen of Dawn, works as a pilot for the Nephilim Company, and her favorite machine is the Hyokrenri, the strongest Nephilim. She prepares for a mock battle with the help of her operator, Mold. Meanwhile, a commotion arises amongst other pilots and operators as they watch a battle between the third-ranked pilot, King's Gambit, and his opponent. However, King's Gambit is unexpectedly pushed back, leaving everyone stunned. The battle between King's Gambit and Kingfisher was intense. The latter's speed and maneuverability were unmatched, and even homing missiles couldn't catch up to it. The newcomers were amazed by Kingfisher's abilities and feared the machine's pilot, who was known for his fearless offense and ability to rival Phoenix herself. Mold and Rust, eager to challenge Kingfisher, sent him an invitation to fight, and after accepting, the 2 frames clashed. Kingfisher's bird-like wings and light armor allowed it to move at incredible speeds, but also made it vulnerable to damage. Rust piloted Phoenix with expert precision, evading Kingfisher's attacks and countering with a laser blade. As the 2 frames collided, the battle entered its climax, and the fate of the pilots hung in the balance. 2 days after defeating the Gatekeeper, Wezaemon, the protagonist woke up in the real world feeling like a zombie. After replenishing his body with food, he logged back into the game and happily discovered that he had leveled up 25 times. His skill points and equipment also increased, including a new storage device and a book detailing the boss's backstory. The most important item was a special bracelet-type accessory called the Inventory, which allowed for infinite storage space. The protagonist eagerly looked forward to exploring its contents. After logging out, the protagonist runs around screaming in a mixture of shame and ecstasy, attracting curious stares from passers-by. He soon realizes the existence of an accessory called Inventory, which leads him to email his allies about it. During their meeting at the NPC cafe Snake's Apple, they discuss the inventory and its potential uses. It is discovered that an ancient artifact is needed to activate its contents and repair broken items from the era of the gods. The protagonist reveals the unique conditions he had to fulfill to defeat a unique monster, which leads to an intense argument with his friends. However, after completing an item transfer, the protagonist remembers to return a golden scale to his ally. The trio discussed Pencilton's valuable item, an offering device that grants immense power in exchange for a sacrifice, and the act of laundering possessions to protect them from penalties. Pencilton had used this method to save valuable items and equipment from being taken during a fight. However, the bounty on his head was a staggering 500 million manny, a debt that couldn't be easily paid off. Despite this, he planned to use the items obtained from defeating Wezaemon, a unique monster, to chip away at the debt. The idea of forming a guild was proposed, but the conversation was cut short when Pencilton was asked if he had someone to buy the items from his inventory. The protagonist reflects on his past experiences with guilds and decides to form his own with 2 other players. They struggle to come up with a suitable name, rejecting several suggestions before settling on Wolfgang. Pencilton is declared the leader through a game of rock, paper, scissors. The trio split up to complete their own quests, and the protagonist gets mistaken for someone else by a newcomer to the game. He hides from the attention, realizing that his reputation has changed since defeating a unique monster. He decides to focus on his task and heads to Rabbits. The group faces a setback as they discover that a crucial item is beyond repair. They decide to seek help from a blacksmith named Wezaemon. However, Break scolds them for relying too much on her father and encourages them to think for themselves. They visit a skill-combining shop to allocate skill points and improve their parameters. The protagonist considers getting a secret skill, but decides to save money. They come up with a plan to help Break become a grandmaster in blacksmithing and convince her to join their cause. With one less problem to worry about, the group sets forth on their journey. Break shows the schematic to the others, and they discuss the necessary items for Break to become a grandmaster. Break mentions the legacy weapon and the unknown magical unity unit. The group examines the non-standard weapon, Harbinger, but it can't be used until the ether reactor is operational. They must locate the magical unity unit in the ancient ruins, which leads to Wezaem's extra quest, the Epic of Vorpal Bunny. The group plans their next moves on the map, considering potential optional areas. However, they face a problem smuggling the bunnies into town. The group suggests wearing a coat, but the narrator doesn't seem thrilled. The Valley of Lost Souls, located beyond the ancient ruins, was the site of a devastating battle that almost wiped out humanity in their technologically advanced era. The battle was interrupted by a monstrous army, but the deaths that occurred made the area a breeding ground for undead. Years later, the area remained dangerous due to curses and debuff magic, making it a challenging place even for seasoned adventurers. Despite this, Emul and the protagonist found themselves overpowered for the area and contemplated taking on a level 100 crystal scorpion. As they strolled through the valley, they encountered a headless Dullahan on horseback. Despite attempting to reason with the NPC, a battle ensued, and the protagonist used their newly enhanced skills to fight. The ignition skill, with its boost in movement speed, proved useful in battle, though the Dullahan was able to avoid a collision. Unable to predict the movements of the headless Dullahan and his horse, the protagonist relies on the horse's movements to maneuver in the right direction. As the Dullahan charges at him, he uses his secret sword art to strike back and tumbles backwards, impressed with his own quick reflexes. The horse gets distracted by a visual distraction and falls off, leaving the Dullahan exposed. The protagonist uses his skills to deliver a powerful blow, followed by his faithful companions. They pulverize the enemy with a combination of magic and physical attacks. As they win the battle, they are left celebrating with a snack. Break, a blacksmith with impressive stats and abilities, catches the attention of the protagonist with her strength. As they fight a Dullahan, Break takes interest in its deteriorated sword and suggests she can restore it. The group continues exploring the area, which is surprisingly easy due to the protagonist's abilities, but they are left feeling frustrated as they don't seem to be making progress. Nonetheless, they appreciate the unique experiences that godly games can offer. As the group approaches a mysterious open space, they ponder the definition of a godly game. Upon entering the space, they encounter a formidable foe, Humming Rich, a massive black skull emitting toxic vapors. It seems the skeleton can only be harmed by a weapon with the holy element, which our protagonist unfortunately lacks. However, with the help of her comrades, she manages to distract the foe while they prepare a weapon with the necessary element. As the battle rages on, the group must maneuver around Humming Rich's teleportation abilities and fend off its various attacks. Finally, after much effort, Break finishes her job and the group is able to damage the monster. Break hands the Dullahan sword to the protagonist, warning him of its low durability. Nonetheless, the sword's extra sharpening effect is an advantage. Facing the Humming Rich, 6 copies of the monster emerge from black flames. The protagonist analyzes the potential patterns of attack and hopes the HP bars are shared. Determined, he readies himself with his sword and bunnies. The 6 monsters rush at him, but he skillfully dodges their attacks. The protagonist notices the AI's straightforward tactics and decides to play it safe. With swift movements, the protagonist dodges an arrow and magic orb shot aimed at them, using Ricochet's step to create distance. Upon firing back at the enemies, the protagonist realizes that the copies share hit points with the main body. After considering various factors, the protagonist unveils a strategy to their comrades. Using their newly acquired skills, they prepare to engage in battle. As the battle heats up, the protagonist and their party members dispose of the enemies one by one with skill and precision. With 3 enemies remaining, the protagonist remains focused and confident. The protagonist faces off against the area boss, with 2 copies and the main body to defeat. Despite the pressure of recast times and the looming stat decrease, the protagonist remains calm. They demonstrate their expertise, swiftly eliminating the copies and focusing on the main body. However, the Humming Rich proves more resilient than expected. With a switch in strategy and the assistance of their allies, the protagonist ultimately pierces the boss's skull with a powerful blow. Victory secured, the protagonist plans to repair their weapon. Break and the protagonist pick up items after defeating a skeleton. The protagonist finds a magical ingredient in the ribcage's fragments. He contemplates selling it if he can't use it. The misty dome over the Valley of Lost Souls dissipates, revealing toxic vapors growing thinner. While departing, Break repairs the Dullahan blade and Emil is bribed with carrots. The protagonist sets out to climb a rocky wall in search of a secret area. Despite being underleveled, he proceeds, equipped with only bare minimum items. Climbing the wall proves challenging, but he eventually reaches the top and views a breathtaking field of crystals. Suddenly, crystal scorpions come to life and give chase. The protagonist remains determined and does not give up. The recommended level for this area was 100, but the weapons with high-level restrictions were too much for the protagonist to handle. So, they resorted to collecting raw materials instead of rare, unusable items. The protagonist made several attempts to gather materials, fighting crystal scorpions, and ultimately finding an Oroncoles jade crystal. They analyzed the scorpion's AI, strength, and power, determining that letting them harm each other would be the best strategy. However, they needed safe zones to hide in and take the aggro off of them. The protagonist faced several challenges but remained determined to progress in the game. Sanraku finds himself trapped in a flat space with crystal scorpions approaching, leaving him with only one option: to attack and hope for favorable RNG. Emil assists him with opening portals, but Sanraku realizes that his bird mask can't help him ascend to safety. However, his grey brain cells kick in, and he figures out a solution using his inventory space. With a quick spell, Sanraku enters a futuristic storage space with impressive steel beasts. He returns to the crystal nest and, after an all-out battle, collects the crystal plating, feeling triumphant. Originally, inventory space was limited for the pioneers. However, the inventory was an incredible place with infinite storage space and safety. With a minimal risk strategy, the protagonist was able to fill their inventory with valuable items and sell any excess for profit. The rare crystal scorpion stinger was the most desired item, but difficult to obtain. The protagonist used their skills to bait the scorpions and attempted to break their tails, but struggled due to a level gap. Nevertheless, they bravely faced the scorpions head-on, determined to put up a fight. The protagonist was waiting for this moment as the scorpions aimed their stingers at him. With quick thinking, he used transfer inventory to disappear and wait patiently before using transfer exit inventory to return to the crystal cliff. His successful strategy caused damage to the scorpions, leading to a rare drop opportunity. However, the RNG goddess and devil were against him, and he left empty-handed. Despite this, he managed to gather rare items and regain some sanity. Accompanied by Emul, they visited Brake's forge to show off the materials, which filled the remaining 20% of his sanity. Brake presents Aaron Carla's Lapisteria, Rowan Amber, Amrasian Quartz, and Crystal Scorpion materials to Emul and Sanraku. Brake happily rummages through the materials and expresses her enthusiasm to craft a weapon from them. Emul learns about the importance of accessories in strengthening one's battle potential and expresses interest in finding a jeweler. Brake recommends a skilled Kate Sith named Animalia. Suddenly, Aramis, a cat musketeer, is called in to assist. Despite their strange introduction, Emul and Sanraku are intrigued by Aramis' skills as a jeweler. A small cat, Aramis, draws her rapier and looks cool, but the protagonist can't help remembering Animalia-san's words. The line between cool and cringy is thin. The protagonist has a request for Aramis to make a special accessory, and Brake provides the gemstones. After the exchange, the protagonist gets emails from Modora Katsu and Pencil Warrior, but decides to ignore them and sleep. After a refreshing nap, the protagonist turns off their mobile device and contemplates their real intentions. They plan to speak to the old man, but it's nothing urgent. They're also joined by Aramis, a Katsuria who's eager to pay back the protagonist for their gift of rare materials. However, Brake explains that the protagonist's actions, such as striking down one of the 7 unique monsters, have a significant impact on the world and could even cause wars. Despite feeling overwhelmed, the protagonist agrees to continue their mission. Meanwhile, Emul seems to be enjoying stepping on a black cat, much to everyone's confusion. The town of Eldolato was illuminated by crystal lamps, with crystal tiles, statues, weapons, and accessories prevalent throughout. As they strolled through the crystal town, Sanraku and his companions engaged in small talk and drew attention from other players. Sanraku had abandoned his previous sneaking habits, opting to wear a long hood to stay incognito. However, he was stopped in his tracks by an unfamiliar voice. The leader of the guild, Library, Kuran, approached them seeking information about the defeat of Gravekeeper Wezaemon. Sanraku saw an opportunity for future cooperation and promised to meet with her later. As he considered the unique nature of Shangri-La Frontier, Sanraku accepted Kuran's friend request and began to tire of always being the isolated player. Excavations of ruins around the world provide clues about the civilization of the gods. The protagonist enters one of the most famous ruins, Lost Ruins, and is awed by its size and metal structures. The ruins are also believed to be the source of the powerful legacy weapons, but what caused the fall of the gods remains a mystery. As the protagonist battles an iron golem, Aramis uses a powerful move that nearly hits the protagonist. After reprimanding Aramis, the protagonist suggests she hold back on using such moves. The group decides to investigate the source of the golems and check for any threats. The golems prove to be difficult to defeat, and the AI controlling them is skilled. The protagonist looks for an escape route and spots the holes where the golems emerge from. They find C4 explosives on one of the golems and realize that they are an even bigger threat than previously thought. The group manages to defeat one golem after finding its reactor and taking it down with a critical hit. However, the golem explodes, injuring some of the group members. They find a rare item, a portable explosive called a haniwa, that drops from iron golems. The protagonist realizes the danger they are in, and that even a small error could be fatal. As they searched for the entrance to the forge, the group realized the enormity of the task ahead. The ruined area was like a colossal junkyard littered with broken golems and architectural debris. The difficulty of searching together with NPCs was compounded by the fact that the time in the MMO constantly moved forward. With no other choice, the group decided to split up. Break and the protagonist worked together, while Aramis and Emul formed another team. They encountered a golem, but with Break's expertise and the protagonist's help, they defeated it and found a rare weapon. Although lacking in special abilities, the Dullahan blade's durability and neck-striking bonus more than compensated. The bulky weapon was a problem for the protagonist, who was used to dual-wielding swords. Their playstyle, which was balls to the wall, didn't match the weapon's requirement of skill. The class and skills system in the game was confusing, with some weapons only compatible with certain classes. Proficiency was necessary to negate negative modifiers in battle. The protagonist and their team searched for an item in the spacious dungeon without a map. They fought golems until they reached the elevator shaft and threw a piece of scrap to determine its depth. Having spare rope was convenient for their descent. Sanraku and his companions confront a gatekeeper robot guarding a door. Katsu descends down the elevator shaft to investigate and discovers the robot, as well as the layout of the lower floor. The group strategizes on how to beat it while trying not to wake it up. Sanraku's animal entourage grows with the addition of 2 more NPCs. Amidst the chaos, the group maintains a cautious and suspicious attitude towards each other, never letting their guard down. With the fate of the reactor at stake, they must work together to overcome the challenge ahead. Descending the elevator shaft via rope, the group finds themselves in a deserted underground facility. Despite no electricity being present, emergency lights remain dimly lit, likely due to advanced technology beyond human reach. After noticing a huge gate, the group devises a plan to distract a golem, blocking their path and approach it from behind. Using their skills to confuse and attack the golem, they eventually manage to destroy it. Despite the length and difficulty of the battle, the group remains in good spirits. The golem seemed designed to keep players at a distance with its 4 arms, energy shields, and laser beams. However, it had no defense against an all-out attack. Pencilton wielded a powerful spear, St. Caldolf, but obtaining one of the game's 5 hero weapons required absurd requirements. As they searched for a way to open a gate, Katsu tried to use his treasure sense spell, but with low success rate due to his low level. The protagonist remembered a traumatic experience with RNG in a previous game and preferred games with no random elements. The protagonist despises the fact that saving important characters in the game requires RNG and sidetracking from the main plot. The obsession with Peaches causes him physical discomfort. Worried about a potential betrayal, they move forward together through a laboratory, seeking a magical Unity unit to craft weapons. They come across a monstrous holographic symbol, and the group realizes it's what they've been searching for. The protagonist is reluctant to leave, but his friends pull him away, reminding him of his responsibility to the guild. Despite his resistance, they tease and guilt him into submission. Aramis watches the group's antics with confusion. The group returns to town after hurling insults at each other, and Emul stays behind as Katsu warns of impending danger. Suddenly, a large crowd of players approaches like a mindless horde, and Animalia demands Emul. Sanraku feels the urge to run, but is met by Saiga Zero and a sword-bearing woman, both showing familiarity with Pencilton. The magical girl wannabe, Massive Dynamite's partner, also joins them. Surrounded by important players, Sanraku feels out of place among these kingpins. Arthur Pencilton, a recent PK graduate, thanks everyone for their hard work as they begin their meeting. Sanraku tries to leave, but is stopped by Pencilton, who reveals that Sanraku is famous on the forums. Animalia asks for information on unique monsters and Night Prowler Lucan, and Saiga Zero admits to having no information. Sanraku reveals that defeating unique monsters requires a quest line, and offers information on Gravekeeper Wezaemon in exchange for debt repayment. Pencilton tries to sell the useless book, much to Katsu's dismay, as the meeting continues. Sega 100 couldn't provide much information about Night Prowler Lucan, but at least its attack patterns were noteworthy. Its basic attacks were faster than normal mobs or bosses, and there were 3 distinctive attack patterns: straightforward, diagonal, and zigzag. Lucan could conceal itself in the shadows and jump out to deal a devastating blow, but it made a slight sound before emerging. As long as one stayed on the move and went in with company, it was possible to dodge most attacks. The protagonist didn't know much about Lucan's close-ranged attacks and was curious about the attack that had devoured him. Saiga 100 offered to help lift Lucan's curse and expressed interest in playing together in the future. Meanwhile, Animalia invited the protagonist to join SF Zoo. The protagonist realizes that she's been too passive and decides to assert herself. The guild SF Zoo makes a request. They want to know how to access rabbits, the country of Vorpal bunnies. As she debates whether or not to share the information, she remembers something important and asks for her companion Emil back. However, he looks different after being handled by SF Zoo and has become unresponsive. The protagonist uses a magical carrot to revive Emil, who reveals that being a pioneer is the best way to obtain entry to rabbits. They also discuss 2 potential extra quests to undertake. The protagonist tries to obtain more information about the bunny country and is told that when Sanraku asks nicely, something can be done about it. Pencilton then requests the guild's emblems to make things official, and the leaders of SF Zoo, Library, and Black Wolves proudly present their emblems. However, the protagonist can't shake off a bad feeling about Pencilton's smile, resembling that of the Mad King Pencil Warrior. After the other guild members left, they moved to Snake's Apple Cafe. Pencilton speculated that the Black Wolves had been keeping an eye on them, while Katsu explained the strategic importance of understanding enemy patterns. The Library Guild was interested in knowledge above all else, while SF Zoo seemed like potential troublemakers. Despite this, the guild members were willing to help each other if needed, as that's what guilds are for. Sanraku-kun may have some secrets, but he's willing to share them for a fair price. Overall, the guilds were all trying to gain unique items and conquer new areas, but some had different priorities than others. As a guild, they possess 5 trump cards that could give them an advantage, including insider information on the Bahamut and a monopoly on the Grandmaster profession. Pencilton's crafty planning could lead them down a dangerous path, but the protagonist has other immediate tasks to focus on, such as repairing a reactor and dealing with potential trouble from SF Zoo in rabbits. The protagonist also wants to maintain good relations with the bunnies and sell unnecessary items for coin. While mining, the protagonist dismisses a bad premonition and is suddenly caught by an unexpected update from the system, leading to a gruesome death by the awakening crystals. Upon logging out, the protagonist discovers that the game has adjusted the behavioral patterns of certain monsters. They realize that this will require a revision of their farming strategy and to start power leveling soon. Despite the difficulty of farming levels later in the game, the protagonist is determined to find a solution to continue farming the valuable crystals. After a moment of pondering and a clumsily spilled drink, they come up with a new strategy based on the law of gravitation. With renewed determination, the protagonist is ready to make an unforgettable comeback. Sanraku and Emil discuss their progress with Edward and plan to visit Break to acquire a legacy weapon. They decide to choose a weapon over a mobile frame for its increased value. Break asks for permission to create a weapon using the crystal materials collected, and they move on to Valley of the Dead to level up. Although Emil's new spells are mostly support ones, they plan to make use of them to defeat the undead. The protagonist and his companion are in the middle of a battle with a wyvern. Using his skills and spells, they manage to defeat it. The companion, Emil, has improved greatly in his abilities as a mage and is becoming more effective. They also use figurines to attract monsters towards them for maximum experience and loot. As they continue their journey, they come across a rare enemy, a Dullahan. The protagonist comes up with a plan to defeat it, which involves using a chain and smashing it around like a bag of potatoes. Despite some moral concerns, they proceed with the plan and successfully defeat the Dullahan. The protagonist reflects on the nature of shitty games, categorizing them into two types, those that occasionally give glimmers of hope and those that are just consistently terrible. Emil seems to feel guilty about something, and the protagonist decides to split the defeated Dullahan like a watermelon. Using Emil's chain, the duo managed to pull the Dullahan off its horse. The protagonist then activated Infinite Stream and attacked the body while Emil struck the horse. With each hit, the protagonist could feel the energy transfer through the blade to his arm. He also added a moon jump to his strikes, causing the Dullahan to crumble. The horse and Dullahan both turned into red polygons. The protagonist leveled up to 79 and gained the skill double jump. Although it was just one level, it meant he was growing stronger.